That morning, October 11th, 2025, the news broke. Diane Keaton was gone, 79 years old. California sunlight spilling across a quiet room as her family confirmed what so many had feared but hoped wasn't true. She'd been ill for months, fading in the way that time and frailty sometimes steal from even the brightest among us. And yet, even in death, the world couldn't stop looking at her photos, quotes, movie clips flooding timelines from Los Angeles to London. There she was again, in that white suit, that crooked smile, that glimmer in her eyes that always made you wonder what secret she was keeping just for herself. Then came Bette's post. Just a few words. The brilliant, beautiful, extraordinary Diane Keaton has died. I am so sad. What you saw was who she was. Hilarious, original, without guile. She was a gem. I love her. I'll miss her all my life. It spread like wildfire. Not because it was polished or poetic, but because it was raw, real. Every word carried the weight of knowing someone so deeply that losing them feels like losing a piece of your own laughter. Fans began reposting that iconic scene from the first Wives Club, Diane, Bette, and Goldie walking down the New York street, hand in hand, laughing as "You Don't Own Me" played in the background. Suddenly, that final walk felt different. Like a farewell we didn't know was coming. Goldie Hawn's message appeared next. She steals the hearts of the world. Jane Fonda called her a national treasure. Nancy Meyers said she'd lost a 40-year friend who could never be replaced. And Woody Allen, her earliest collaborator, wrote that she was intelligent and funny to the core. But if you read between their words, there was something more than admiration. It was respect, the kind that's earned, not given. Diane Keaton lived her life slightly out of sync with Hollywood's rhythm. She didn't chase trends, she didn't care for the noise. She wore what she liked, said what she meant, and somehow in doing so gave permission for millions of women to do the same. People who worked with her always said the same thing. She was honest to the very end. That's probably why Bette's tribute hit so hard. It wasn't a eulogy, it was one honest artist saying goodbye to another who had never learned how to be anything but herself, and that friendship between Diane and Bette became something bigger than just two co-stars who once shared a movie set. It became a mirror for everything Hollywood rarely shows us. Women lifting each other, not competing. Aging not as loss, but as evolution. Laughter that doesn't fade even when the credits roll. Their story began, fittingly, with laughter. Back in 1995, Paramount took a risk on a film that no one believed would work. No male lead, no explosions. Just three women over 40 finding their strength after heartbreak. The first Wives Club. Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, and Goldie Hawn, three forces of nature, turned what could have been a quiet comedy into a cultural earthquake. The kind that makes you laugh one minute and feel seen the next. Filmed in New York, the energy on set was electric. Director Hugh Wilson later said those three women turned every shoot into a celebration. They made everyone forget this was work, he said. Every scene began with laughter. And maybe that's why the movie hit so deep when it premiered in 1996. It wasn't just a film about revenge. It was about rediscovering who you are when the world stops clapping. It made $181 million on a $26 million budget, but its real success couldn't be counted. It gave women a story that said, "You're not done yet." And it gave Hollywood a reminder that sometimes the brightest lights don't flash. They glow quietly, steadily, until the very end. And now, years later, as tributes flood in and her name trends once more, that glow feels eternal. Bette Midler's words echo what everyone who ever loved Diane already knew. She made everything brighter. And even now she still does. It was one of those moments you don't forget, not because of what was said, but because of how it felt. Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, and Diane Keaton walked the red carpet hand in hand, flashes bursting like stars around them. For a second, it looked as if the characters from the first Wives Club had stepped right out of the screen and into real life. Reporters called it a symbol of women unbowed by age, but to them, it was just three friends who'd shared something special. After the screening, Diane smiled that quiet smile of hers and said, "I never thought I'd have two friends like this." Goldie laughed and replied, We worked like three people who'd known each other all our lives. Then Bette, with that half smirk that always means she's about to say something that'll stick with you, added softly, "If I could, I'd do it all over again with these two." The room went still for a moment. No one realized it then, but that line would become the thread connecting them for decades. Three women bound by one story that never really ended. When whispers of a sequel began years later, fans immediately remembered Bette's words. So when Paramount finally announced Family Jewels, a film that would reunite the trio, social media went wild. It felt like the universe was giving them one more dance together. But then, the pandemic hit, and that promise, just like Bette's wish, was left hanging in the air, untouched. When someone asked Diane what she remembered most from the First Wives Club, she didn't talk about fame or awards. She said simply, "The laughter. I remember their laughter." Bette echoed that sentiment in an interview. "I still keep in touch with Diane and Goldie. We don't see each other often, but we still send Christmas cards. That friendship, that's the truest part of the movie." After the laughter faded from the film, life took them in different directions, but somehow they kept walking parallel paths. Two lights shining side by side, even from miles apart. As the new century began, Diane Keaton stepped into the most honest chapter of her career. While others her age quietly drifted away from the spotlight, Diane stayed exactly where she'd always been, right in front of the camera, doing what she loved. In 2000, she starred in Hanging Up, playing a daughter torn between duty and love, bringing her signature mix of warmth and wit. 3 years later, Something's Gotta Give changed everything again. The film became a global hit, earning over $260 million and giving Diane a Golden Globe. When asked how she managed to keep going in an industry obsessed with youth, she smiled and said, "I'm not trying to stay young forever. I just want to work, and that's what made her different." She didn't fight aging. She befriended it. Every new role, The Family Stone, Book Club, Mac and Rita, showed a new shade of womanhood, painted with humor, honesty, and grace. During Book Club's promotion, she said something that resonated far beyond the screen. "Women my age don't need permission to feel joyful." While Diane kept shining on film, Bette Midler returned to the stage, reclaiming Broadway as her home. In 2017, her performance in Hello, Dolly earned her a Tony Award. Critics said she carried the same fiery spirit of the 1970s, only now with more power. She followed that with roles in The Stepford Wives, Parental Guidance, and Hocus Pocus 2, each bursting with her signature spark. Bold, eccentric, and alive, the two women won commanding stages. The other commanding screens remained connected through the simplest of gestures. Birthday cards, holiday notes, a quick call that always ended in laughter. "Every time we do see each other," Bette said on TV once. The laughter's still the same as in 1996. That line spread across headlines proves that friendship, real friendship, doesn't fade with fame or time. Then came 2020, and Paramount's official announcement of Family Jewels. The idea of seeing Diane, Bette, and Goldie together again after more than 20 years sent fans into a frenzy. The plot of three mothers preparing for their children's weddings felt like the spiritual sequel to the First Wives Club, but once again, life intervened. The pandemic hit, production stopped, and Bette, ever candid, later said, "It's stuck in development hell." Yet neither of them carried disappointment, only gratitude. Their bond, it seemed, was never about one more movie. It was about something much bigger. In 2021, the First Wives Club turned 25, and the world rediscovered it all over again. Magazines reprinted behind-the-scenes photos of Bette laughing mid-line, Diane adjusting her hat, Goldie beaming like sunlight. Bette told People magazine, "Diane made that film immortal." Diane replied, "Bette is an energy that can never be repeated." Those two lines spread everywhere, not because of nostalgia, but because they reminded people of what's been missing in Hollywood for so long. Real connection, built on laughter, truth, and love that doesn't need the spotlight. Years earlier, in 2017, when Diane received the American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award, Bette sent a video message that made everyone in the room tear up. "She makes everything brighter," Bette said. The world needs more people like Diane Keaton. When the clip played, Diane laughed from her seat, eyes sparkling, as if she could feel her friend's presence across the miles. Through awards, decades, and distance, the two never stopped reflecting each other's light. Their friendship wasn't built on shared fame, but shared truth, a kind of emotional honesty that can only come from walking through time together, unafraid of what changes and what doesn't. Because behind the applause and the film reels, that's what Diane and Bette always stood for. Women who kept laughing when the world told them to fade. Women who, even decades later, still found joy in remembering how it all began with friendship, laughter, and a promise to do it all again. Flashbulbs when Diane Keaton was just a young woman stepping onto a stage called Hair in 1968. It was wild, loud, and unapologetically alive. That was her first brush with the counterculture movement, and something about it, freedom, the truth-telling, lit a spark that would never fade. Not long after, Woody Allen saw something in her. He invited her to join his play Play It Again, Sam, and what began as one collaboration became a creative partnership that would define much of her early career. When the play was adapted into a film in 1972, Diane reprised her role, and suddenly, everyone knew her name. That same year, she stepped into another world entirely, The Godfather. As Kay Adams, she was both fragile and fierce, a quiet observer of power and corruption. That role didn't just change her career, it carved her name into cinema history. But it was 1977 that turned her into a cultural icon. Annie Hall, a character so effortlessly real that audiences saw her not as a role, but as a person. Diane won the Oscar, but more than that, she won freedom. The suits, the hats, the wide leg pants weren't fashion statements. They were declarations of self. "I don't want to be anyone else," she told Rolling Stone. "I just want to be me." What most people didn't see were the shadows behind that light. In later years, Diane admitted she had battled an eating disorder when she was young, a quiet struggle that nearly consumed her. She didn't share it for sympathy, but as part of her truth. It was pain she transformed into empathy, the same quality that made her performances so human. While Diane was finding her rhythm in film across the ocean, another woman was chasing her own light. Bette Midler, born in Honolulu, raised in a modest Jewish family, packed her dreams and moved to New York in 1965. She sang in small, smoky clubs and studied acting at HB Studio, scraping by, sometimes sleeping on sofas. Between 1966 and 1969, she was part of Fiddler on the Roof, working her way up from the ensemble to playing Zeitel. But her real stage wasn't Broadway. It was a place few would have guessed, the Continental Baths, a gay bathhouse in New York. There, she found her first real audience, singing, joking, dancing unfiltered, unafraid. "That place taught me freedom and self-respect," she later said. It was there that the divine Miss M was born, a persona bursting with color, humor, and rebellion. In 1972, she released The Divine Miss M, her debut album. It skyrocketed. She won the Grammy for Best New Artist, and her fearless blend of comedy and music made her a sensation. But it was the rose that revealed the soul behind the spectacle. Playing a rock singer destroyed by fame, Bette poured her own loneliness into the role and earned an Oscar nomination. By the end of the 70s, Diane had become the face of intelligent, unconventional womanhood, while Bette became the voice of those who refused to fit in. Two women on different stages, both rewriting the rules. As the 80s began, their worlds still hadn't crossed, but the universe was setting the stage. Diane took on complex, layered roles. Reds earned her another Oscar nomination, Baby Boom became the anthem of the modern working woman, and Father of the Bride made her a household name. "Middle-aged women always have to fight for worthy roles," she said. And I love that challenge. Meanwhile, Bette was conquering both music and film. The story of two women's lifelong friendship captured hearts everywhere. Wind Beneath My Wings became a song for anyone who'd ever loved deeply and lost painfully. For the Boys followed, earning her another Oscar nomination and proving her range. "Hollywood forgets women after 40, she told the LA Times. But music kept me alive. Their paths were parallel, never touching but somehow aligned. In 1992, both women attended the Golden Globes, Bette as a nominee, Diane as a guest. A photographer caught them backstage, standing side by side. The photo ended up in People magazine, described as two flames that had never touched. One radiated intellect, the other raw emotion. Yet together, they looked like balance itself. They didn't know it then, but 4 years later, their worlds would finally collide. The First Wives Club, a film that would redefine female friendship on screen, would unite these two forces of nature. But before that, both faced their own storms. Diane's loyalty to Woody Allen, even as serious allegations surfaced, divided public opinion. Some called her brave. Others called her blind. Still, she stood firm, saying, "Woody is my friend and I continue to believe him." Bette, meanwhile, wrestled with her own demons. After years of fame and constant reinvention, she hit a wall. "I was hurt by being misunderstood," she said. "But I learned to forgive myself." She took time away, found therapy, and came back stronger. Her honesty and her willingness to show the cracks became part of what people loved most about her. Both women had been bruised by the same industry that celebrated them. But neither let it define them. They learned to turn struggle into substance, vulnerability into power. And when 1996 finally arrived, their meeting on the set of the First Wives Club felt almost destined. Two lives that had been running side by side finally merging into one story. Now, as the world mourns Diane Keaton's passing, it's impossible not to see how beautifully those two stories intertwined. From the stages of Hair and the Continental Baths to the bright glow of Annie Hall and The Rose, they built legacies that weren't about fame, but about authenticity. In an industry that changes faces faster than the seasons, Diane and Bette stood still in their truth. They didn't chase trends, they built their own. And maybe that's why they lasted. If Diane's quiet smile or Bette's wild laughter ever made you feel something, hold on to that. That's the magic that never fades. Tell me in the comments which of their moments touched you the most. And if you want to keep exploring the stories of film's most unforgettable icons, don't forget to subscribe and keep that little bell on. Because the next story might just remind you why we fall in love with movies in the first place.